Hello, New Covenant Parish. Back to talk to you one more time this week about the last lectionary reading we'll study on this week. And it's from Matthew 22, verses 1 through 14. And this is called by many the parable of the wedding banquet. And Jesus tells it while still in the temple district, teaching the people while the religious authorities are questioning his authority. And Jesus' response to their attacks on him is to tell them these stories. This one tells the story of a wedding feast hosted by a king for his son. And when the king sends his servants to tell his invited guests to come, a strange thing happens. The servants are made light of, they're mistreated, some of them are even killed. And the king is so enraged by what happened, he sends out his troops, telling them to kill all the invited guests and just burn down their city. And after that takes place, the king tells more of his servants to go out into the streets and invite anyone and everyone to the wedding banquet that the invited guests were not worthy enough to attend. So they do it. And the wedding hall was full of guests, both good folks and bad folks, as Jesus tells it. All right, now what does all this mean? Well, this is another allegory where one thing stands for another thing. The king is God, the son is Jesus, the invited guests are Jews who've rejected the Christian gospel. The servants calling the invited guests are preachers who've been abused and whose message has been rejected by Jewish leaders. The vengeance the king seems to really be relating here to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD by the Romans. The guests brought in from the street are the Gentiles who end up enjoying the wedding banquet. So the parable brings to mind the Jewish rejection of Christian messengers who bring the invitation to them about the kingdom. But just like the parable before this one that we looked at last week about the wicked tenants, Jesus isn't going to let the Gentiles get too smug about the judgment that was given to others. The warning to them comes in the last scene when the king notices one of the guests in the hall who was not wearing a wedding robe. Now, the king asks the man what he's doing there wearing the wrong clothes. And the poor man is speechless before the king. The king then has the man thrown out of the hall into the outer darkness where there's wailing and gnashing of teeth. Now, what is this all about? Well, apparently, Jesus is challenging any feelings of self-righteousness the Gentiles might be feeling about their invitation to the banquet. See, because now in the story, the Jewish leaders and people are no longer in view. Now it's only Christian hearers and readers who are being addressed. And that includes us. So the question is for us, why is Jesus confronting us with the helpless, disturbing figure of a guest who shows up at the banquet wearing the wrong clothes? Probably this is to warn us that judging others is not the business of the audience as we're showing up to enjoy the big banquet of life God's throwing for us in his kingdom. Rather, our business is to worry about the clothes we personally are wearing to the banquet. We're to worry about our own preparedness to meet the king, to stand before the king in the face of judgment. And I don't know about you all, but the question now I want to ask of the story is, what kind of clothes am I supposed to be wearing to this party? Well, look, Christians, going all the way back to the patristic period, the early church fathers, have put forth a lot of answers, tons of them. But in the context of Matthew's gospel, the wedding garment most probably symbolizes things like Matthew goes over, Jesus saying, doing the will of my Father in heaven, having a righteousness that exceeds that of the scribe and Pharisees, or producing fruits of the kingdom that we talked about in the message last week. In other words, as we stand before God being judged, we need to be wearing clothes that show a consistency between what we say and how we live, a consistency between our words and our deeds that would be appropriate for anyone who calls Jesus their Lord. In that regard, the wedding clothes symbolize not fake or phony, but just authentic and true discipleship. And the parable is prodding us, like trying to put a stubborn cow in a chute, prodding us to be self-critical about how we're living as Christians, so we don't find ourselves among the folks wearing the wrong clothes at the judgment. That's what he's the point. But it's not exactly the point. And I'm going to qualify what I just told you with this. I don't think Jesus is looking for us to put on a show or make any kind of kingdom calculations about what exactly to wear, what would serve our self-interest the most to wear in our lives. He simply wants us, and he wants our lives to reflect his grace. He wants us to be genuine. He wants us to be trustworthy. I think, kind of like in the parable about the sheep and the goats in Matthew 25. Go back and read that one. Jesus would like us to be surprised, kind of like the man in the story, surprised, maybe even shocked, when we're judged by the Lord to be worthy of his kingdom. I mean, when did we see you, Lord? We'll ask. And he'll say, well, every time you thought about and went about helping others before yourself, you saw me. And what you did for them, you did for me. So welcome to the kingdom, friend. You're wearing the right clothes. So the point I'm trying to make is, may God find us all, folks, every day, with no guile, no pretense, just simply and honestly showing that we're wearing the right clothes by how we treat each other. That's the heart of this parable. God only knows, folks, that's the heart of the gospel. Let's take it to heart, practice it day by day as his people. Been good to be with you nearly every day this week, and God bless you, my friends. Looking forward to seeing you on Sunday.